Right now we are going to look at how to plot data, make a picture, look at the scatter plot, describe the association if it's straight enough, find a best fit line, and see what the R value is. And first I'm going to do it on GeoGebra, and then I'm going to do it on Fathom. And you yourselves can see the pros and cons of each, but feel free to use whichever form you like. This data has to do with, it's number 34 on page 168. A survey was conducted in the United States and 10 countries of Western Europe to determine the percentage of teenagers who had used marijuana and other drugs. So these were the countries, and this was who used marijuana and who used other drugs. So if I want to plot those in GeoGebra, I highlight the two columns and I come up here. Yours probably says one variable regression analysis. It probably looks like that actually to start, but we want to do two variable regression analysis. And so we hit analyze and it actually opens a new window. Oh, and I already did this. So there probably was none to begin with. And I didn't have this. Let me shut that off. So you probably get something that just looks like this. Sorry, I should have closed all that before. And we're looking at a scatter plot. You could look at a residual plot. We'll talk about that later. So here's a scatter plot. So let's describe the association, direction, form, and strength. So it's positive. The more marijuana users you have, the more other drug users you have. And it's fairly straight, I would say straight enough, and it looks moderate to strong. So that's the association. So since it is straight enough and we do have quantitative variables, and there doesn't really appear to be any outliers, let's go ahead and plot a line. And there's the equation for our line. There's the slope. There's a vertical intercept. Again, we'll talk a bit more about defining those later. And then if I do want to find the R value, there's this little box up here, which is a summary statistics box, and there's the mean X value, the mean Y value, which would be needed in order to determine the Z-scores. Actually, the mean and the standard deviation of each of those you would need to determine each of the Z-scores of each X value and the Z-score of each Y value in order to calculate the R. And there's an R. It's positive and it's 0.93. So that is a strong positive correlation. All right, let's see what that looks like on Fathom. And if you, hopefully we've done enough Fathom, you remember, I just dragged down a table and I was able to title this marijuana and this other drugs. I haven't played that much with GeoGebra in terms of putting titles in. I'll have to play a little bit more with that. And so I want a graph, and I'll assume that marijuana use will explain other drugs, or you're more likely to use other drugs if you've used marijuana. And again, here's the same association: positive, straight, and strong. And in order to get a line here, I go down and I choose the least squares line. I right-clicked on the graph. And the thing I like about Fathom is it defines the variables. It tells you that the likelihood that, or the number of other drug users is 0.6 times the number of marijuana users minus 3.1. And here we're getting an R squared value, so we'd have to take the square root of that to get R. And there's how you can plot on GeoGebra and Fathom and determine an R value.